And now, the LSU Football Fix with Preston Guy, presented by TigerBait, starts now.
And welcome in to your LSU Football Fix. Join with me as always is Sports Illustrated's Zack Nagy of LSUcountry.com. Zack, man, it's been kind of a slow week for the football team, but plenty going on the basketball court. I'm sure you're looking forward to the Thursday night matchup, huh?
Thursday's going to be a really good one, man. I'm excited. Obviously, it's a top 10 matchup in the PMAC. You're going to have college game day in town. It's really going to be it's going to be a special day for the program. And obviously, you have Dawn Staley and the Gamecocks coming to town. It's going to be, one of the more anticipated matchups of the entire season. So, Kim Mulkey's excited, the program's excited, and I know the fan base is excited too. And those ticket prices are pretty insane. So it's getting really exciting. I can't wait for Thursday night.
Boy, are they. And, there couldn't be a more likable coach coming in town than Dawn Staley, right? I think it's funny. You got Nikki Fargas, who was on the call for LSU this weekend.
That was wild.
That is so wild, man. I don't know how you as a broadcast team say, let's put their former coach who got fired on this sucker.
I wonder if it's the first one that she's done.
Well, yeah,
for LSU.
I couldn't even remember, to tell you the truth, but I did see she was doing it this weekend. But man, that I just thought that was too funny. Now, it would have been really great if they had her on this week on Thursday for that, with all the dramas that's there. But I guess the LSU South Carolina series has enough drama just by itself. So we'll see. That would be one major accomplishment. Basically, the last major accomplishment Kim Mulkey hasn't already had at LSU is just beating Dawn Staley in South Carolina, because they lost by 20 in Columbia last year. So anyways, guys, tonight, it's been a little bit of a slower week, of course. So if you've got some comments, some things you want to ask about, fire them away tonight. We're going to be talking about LSU's defensive staff. We're going to talk a little bit about the offensive coordinator search. One guy pulled his name out of the hat officially today. We'll be talking about that. And then we're going to be talking about some recruiting updates, because, the sites are updating their recruiting rankings. So there's some news on that front in terms of, how players are evaluated and rated. There was a significant shakeup, and one kid reclassifying to 2025 that now gives us a very interesting look at the 2026 rankings. And of course, we're going to talk a little bit about why you might not be seeing LSU hitting the transfer portal quite as hard as maybe you're expecting to see it. So, of course, let's get some comments real quick. We'll dive right in. Gary Williams, smash those like buttons and share. That's right, guys. Smash the like button. Look, someone beat you to it tonight, Fire3449. It is everybody. Hit the like button. There you go. Gary beat me to it. He even admitted it. So we'll open up with a comment here from David Lawrence. We'll dive right into it. Woohoo! Another edition of TigerBait. Anything in your crystal ball concerning defensive linemen or cornerbacks? Give us the scoop. Here's the deal. LSU's got 88 scholarship players right now. They're actually 3 over their limit, which is a wonderful problem to have if you think about it. A problem that you really didn't expect based on the last couple of years for LSU. There's been so much reshuffling, restocking, and all that good stuff. Well, Brian Kelly finally has the roster at a point where it's retaining players, developing that kind of good stuff, and they're being more selective with the portal. They're not just taking bodies just to get bodies, because we saw the effect of that last year. You had a bunch of guys who were plug and play guys, and they weren't all ready. They need to get players in that they can develop over time and fit into their system. That's what they want to do. So, Zach, I don't see anybody, defensive lineman or defensive back. There were some guys like Jameer Grimsley. He committed elsewhere. So, I'm not really seeing much. I think you're going to have to wait till spring, right?
Yeah, I'm just going to kind of say exactly, reiterate what you said. You're over the scholarship count. And that second transfer portal window in the spring is going to be your bread and butter for this program. So, you're going to see some guys get processed. You're going to see some guys leave the program. And, when it comes to this whole, crystal balling anybody, there's not that many people on their radar right now. There's a JUCO guy, Jaleel Muhammad, who went and played his ball at Garden City. He's a guy who played at Arkansas State, and then ultimately went over and did JUCO ball for the last couple of years. So that's a guy that is on their radar, but I wouldn't say crystal ball worthy right now, just because there's not enough substance to it. So like Preston was saying, I completely agree that second transfer portal window in the spring is going to be where you fill out this roster and make some significant moves. So I'm excited to see what happens over the next couple of months, but for now, man, no, nothing too much for Preston to say on that front.
Yeah, it's going to be kind of quiet for a little bit. And the other thing is you got to wait for some attrition to happen as well. I mean, there's going to be almost certainly you're going to have, you're going to lose at least 3 guys, just statistically speaking. It's an anomaly that you wouldn't. So you really want to avoid having to cut a kid or tell him to enter the portal, because that is bad PR for you. But I mean, in this day and age, man, I mean, when the kids can come in, like, it's not a big deal like it used to. I remember Chris Garrett, the 3-star quarterback, basically just stunk and got cut by the team. Les Miles said it's sad that he left the team, trying to not make him look bad. Didn't have the heart or whatever to keep on competing. But he ended up, I think, at Northwestern State or something like that. Well, anyways, he came out and did an interview with ESPN saying that, he said I quit when he kicked me off the team, and it was just a lot of pie in your face. I don't think there'd be much sympathy nowadays. I haven't seen a piece come out like that. But like, you don't have to sit out a year.
Exactly.
The players aren't married to the teams. The teams aren't married to the players. This is all open free agency. So we'll see how that plays out. That being said, they're not just going to take body just to take a body. I do think that's a bit of a mistake when you look at the defensive tackle position in particular. I disagree with the philosophy. I think they really need to be getting some bodies in at defensive tackle. You got 2 returning guys. You got 2 freshmen. By the way, one of the freshmen worked his way up the recruiting rankings. Dominic McKinley, who was a fringe 5-star guy, he's now in the top 20 on some sites. So Dominic McKinley, and you're talking about bringing in a JUCO defensive tackle and Sean Washington, and then you've got 2 freshmen. And then 2 returning players, Jacoby and Guillory and Jalen. That's not a recipe for success unless you have a plan to bulk up one of these edge rushers.
No, you're going to have to hit the portal with force over the next couple of months. Obviously, start to figure out some guys that you want to target once you get underneath that scholarship count. But yeah, no, man, like I completely agree that you got bodies, you got talent, but there's just, let me reiterate this. You don't have bodies, but you have some talent. So you got to go out there and just get as much depth as you can, because it's not sustainable with what you have right now come SEC play next year. So it'll take some time, but like you said, man, and we've said it a bunch of times now, that second transfer portal window is going to be your bread and butter.
And, it really is disconcerting when you talk about the 2 returning players. Jacoby and Guillory, that's a serviceable, good player. I mean, I have no problem with him. It's Jalen Lee hasn't really played any significant reps in his entire college career. That's a little disconcerting just overall. Fire 333449 brought up another good comment here. I was actually on Hunt Palmer's show and he asked me something similar. Could LSU offer an NIL deal so they keep them on as walk-ons? And the hilarious thing to think about this is, okay, most NIL deals that you're getting aren't really like the value of a scholarship. I think of a scholarship's valued at like $50K a year, something like that. Because it's like your housing, your food, the cost of tuition.
They get a bunch of stipends every month.
Yeah, and then if it's an out-of-state kid, I mean, they get a cost of living stipend, which I remember was a big deal like 15 years ago.
Now it is.
Now it's like chump change. It's like, whatever, I got NIL. The question is here, who would you ask to be a walk-on? Because these NIL deals that the small guys, I don't want to say the small players, but the smaller package NIL deals for not the 5-star quarterbacks of the world tend to not be the value of a scholarship. And so does that mean you're going to have like your best players who easily are getting 6-figure deals? Are they all of a sudden going to be technically walk-ons? Like is Bryce Underwood going to show up on campus with all his NIL money as a walk-on? it speaks to what uncharted territories. Now, we've already seen this in baseball. We've already seen this. Like LSU's baseball team is absolutely, because they only have 11.7 and they have to dice up those scholarships to begin with. You're already seeing that. So I think it might be used to supplement it a little bit. I just wonder who and how. It's uncharted territory. Let's see here. We'll get to a few comments here. I do have some structure tonight, just so we know, but I think that a lot of that structure will work its way out naturally if I get to some comments. Best comment of the night: South Carolina coach is a jerk. I refuse to elaborate, but I will agree. Cousin Trey, what's up? Good evening, cousin Zack. Great show as usual. I hope Zack lands on his feet after the turmoil at SI. Do you want to comment on that at all, or should I skip?
I mean, all I'll say is that I'm good on my end. They did let go of a lot of people. Obviously, everybody saw the news with SI last Friday. But for me, I'm still operating business as usual with LSU Country on my site. I'm still publishing content daily, doing my thing over there. So my umbrella of the SI network is good on my side. So, continue checking out LSU Country because we're still rolling business as usual. But unfortunately, it was a tough day for a lot of colleagues up at SI Nationals. But for me on my end, things are going pretty smooth. So appreciate the words, Trey, but we're doing good over here right now.
That is good to hear, man. That was the first concern I had when I saw that news. I was like, I gotta check on my guy Nagy, see what's going on there. Now, the magazine, is that going to stop publishing, or do you even know?
It seems like no, but I don't have a definitive answer, so I'd probably rather just not give an answer just because I'm not 100% sure and I don't want to spread false information.
Yeah. Well, I could set you up with 1,000 trap questions here on this, but
I know I just gave my media trained answer right there.
You had to switch from journalism to PR real quick.
Yeah, I had to go straight media trained right there.
Yeah, I do have 1,000 questions about the situation. None I would probably want to ask you on air.
Yeah.
Yeah, before even ever talking to you about it. But of course,
I'm grateful that I'm good on my side.
This is what I meant by some content unraveling organically through the questions. Any idea who Coach Bo and Coach Corey's first big time recruit will be? Well, I do know this. Corey Raymond's trying to get on Florida safety DJ Pickett right now, who LSU's currently not in the mix at all, but he was recruiting him at Florida and had a pretty good relationship. He's a Florida kid. And they're trying to get in the mix there. That could be the first one. It would be uncanny to land the number one safety to go with the number one running back and the number one receiver and the number one quarterback for the class of 2025. Define big. I mean, probably the first one you'd consider big time will be, a portal kid, maybe that isn't even in the portal yet.
When I think of big time, my mind immediately shifts to that 2026 class.
Yeah, I was about to say Jakeem Stewart. That's literally what I was about to say. So, if y'all missed it, Juju Lewis, the number one prospect for the class of 2026, he's a quarterback who's committed to USC. He just reclassified to the class of 2025. Unlike Colin Hurley, when Colin Hurley did that, he didn't get a big penalty on his rating because Colin Hurley reclassified. He was a 2025 kid, reclassified to 2024, and they dropped him from a 5-star to a 3-star, which I thought was ludicrous, but okay. I can understand where he ended up in his rating. He's like, the 10th quarterback, 4-star kid or whatever. I understand that. I don't understand 3-star or whatever they had him. That was a joke. But anyways, Juju Lewis reclassifies, so he's no longer the number one recruit in the country. Who slides into that number one spot? None other than, is it St. Augustine High School? Is that right? Jakeem Stewart from New Orleans, a kid who I saw in 8th grade at an LSU camp. And I actually asked if he was one of the senior teammates because I hadn't seen him before. He was not on my radar. And I actually hadn't seen the teammate at the time. Was it maybe... I can't even remember who the kid was, but, and he's like, no, I'm Jakeem. And I'm like, oh, well, you're in 8th grade. Oh my God, this kid's a freak. So I knew that was coming up big.
They call him Thanos, I think.
Thanos. Yeah. What a nickname, man. And he, trust me. I by the way, I did a quick little, just like email interview with him after that. And I asked him if he's planning on getting the LSU offer anytime soon. 8th grader. And he's like, yeah, Ben had that. Like, of course you did, Thanos. So he's a freak. He's now the number 1 recruit in the country for the class of 2026. That very well could be the first big time player.
Yeah, when I think big time, that my mind just immediately locked in on Jakeem Stewart, just because, I mean,
Right.
number 1 national guy.
Yeah. So I didn't want to go that far down the road because almost certainly there will be a big name player that he lands before him. But you want to talk about big time. Do you know what a big deal? First off, let's just get this out of the way. Those recruiting rankings are probably not going to be exactly the same in 2 years when we get to the signing day.
Yeah.
But do you know what a big deal it would be if LSU landed back-to-back number 1 players in the country?
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
That'd be monumental. And all this whole can we just I don't want to beat on this because there are a lot of guys who every time LSU lands a recruit talks about this, but the whole narrative that Brian Kelly was a lazy recruiter and wouldn't fit in with kids in Louisiana and couldn't pull them in. I mean, that's we just got to put that out. We got to take that out back like old Yeller and shoot that, right?
Put it to bed.
It's over. I'm even tired of hearing the whole "but Brian Kelly can't recruit" thing after every, like, it's old. It's like, yeah, no, he's doing a hell of a job recruiting. In the 2026 class for Louisiana, all of a sudden with Juju Lewis scooting up to that 2025, you've got the number 1 player in the country, Jakeem Stewart, the number 4 player in the country, Blaine Bradford, safety out of Catholic High, who very well could be a big-time recruit Corey Raymond pulls in. So that could be his first, depending on what you consider first. And then, of course, at U-High, you've got Lamar Brown, who LSU's been on very early. He's a freak. He's going to play offensive line, but he wants to actually play offensive and defensive line, but most people are saying his future's at offensive line, so he'd be an offensive tackle.
And man, he was at just about every single home game this year too. I mean,
he's all over LSU.
Yeah, like he's obviously goes to school right on campus. So, but he was at almost every single game this year. You know, you saw him on the sidelines. He's been a key component to what this program started doing the recruiting trail. And then same thing with Blaine. He's been on campus a bunch of times too. So look, this program is not shy about getting active in the 2026 class right now. They've been making moves, traveling, seeing some guys doing what they got to do, and extending offers, even though whatever it is what it is. But yeah, that's a pretty monumental thing, like you were saying, Preston. Have the number 1, 4, and 5 players nationally all residing, in South Louisiana.
That is why Brian Kelly left one of the most prestigious jobs in the country for LSU. That right there. That's the kind of stuff that happens when in Louisiana. I don't know that Louisiana's ever produced the top 5. I severely doubt all 3 will end in the top 5. Not to put on the whole tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. A lot of people think that once these guys show interest in LSU or commit to LSU, that the recruiting services rig it against LSU or whatever. I'm not going down that path. I'm just saying recruiting classes shake up over time quite a bit, and we're still in the early phases of this recruiting class. But just know the groundwork is there for a very special 2025 and a very special 2026. Future for LSU looking very bright at this current moment in time. So keep an eye on all 3 of those guys, man. And by the way, LSU is the heavy favorite on all 3, like heavy favorite. And a certain coach in Tuscaloosa isn't there to pry his dirty hands behind the fence he built in Louisiana anymore. So that gives me just a ton of confidence, because we've seen kids like that. Like Dylan Moses was a kid LSU got all over early, pushed for hard. Les Miles did everything he could, but there was Nick Saban and the temptation to play for the greatest of all time. Nick Saban gets fired, and the kid makes a business decision. Now, I still think, based on talking to Keelan, I think Dylan regrets going to Alabama. I really do. Because have you seen how hyped Keelan Moses is about being an LSU Tiger?
I love it. He's obviously, like I was saying, one of the key components of the 2025 class in general. Like, he's just an elite level recruiter, and he's just kind of in this, he's a recruiter himself. So yeah, no, I'm every time I see him put on his little recruiting cap, I love it.
H-Town Creole. Make sure BK puts you on payroll, Preston, because you flipped some in-state prospects that were leaving the state. Actually, yeah, 2 of the guys we talked to on this show committed to Texas A&M first before coming to LSU. And I'm trying to think who. Harlem Berry. So we 3 for 3 this year. So yeah, coach, whatever their NIL deal is, me and Zack will split 5%.
We just need a percentage, exactly.
Just 5% of whatever those guys make in NILs. Just sling that my way as the commission, and we're good, bro. So, and look, Pierce Lee, Keelan Moses speaking 2025 and 2026 into existence. And understand, he committed before the 3 guys, the 3 big ones in the class. Well, I guess Decorian Moore committed already, but he committed before Harlem Berry and Bryce Underwood, and we all kind of knew exactly what he was talking about. But he's like, guys, I can't say anything, but just trust me. Just trust me. This is gonna be the number 1 class, like best class ever. And I just love how hype he's just like the fans are with this kind of stuff, you know. And I love when recruits show that kind of energy. Usually, they're very businessman like about this kind of situation, but. Not Keelan, man. I think Keelan has grown up as much of a hardcore LSU fan as anybody watching this show right now. I really do believe that. I'm going to knock out a quick early commercial here just to kind of get the pace of the show going. And we're going to be right back. Before I do that, guys, if you're enjoying the show tonight, please hit that like button, share to your socials, all the good stuff. If, help our analytics out, make sure we get likes so Mike Scarborough doesn't make fun of me when we end the show. I appreciate that as always. And if you've got any really big pertinent comments you want to put out there, don't forget to hit up that super chat, guys, big or small. I'll put it up on the screen, guaranteed, if you give us a super chat. So, of course, guys, y'all know our show is brought to you our title sponsor is Celebrity Theaters, guys. They make our show possible. So let's give them a shout out real quick, guys. It's Louisiana's only locally owned and operated theater with locations in Baton Rouge and Ruston. Of course, because it is Louisiana's only locally owned and operated facility, you're guaranteed to see every single time a clean facility, better pricing, superior customer service, state-of-the-art technology. The Baton Rouge location, of course, has an invigorating arcade featuring over 50 games. It is the largest in town. It's got a bar featuring wine, beer, and frozen drinks, oversized leather reclining seats, and, of course, the Dolby Atmos 3D sound system. And of course, we got to talk about our friends at Koala Insulation, guys. The team at Koala Insulation of Baton Rouge are your residential and commercial energy efficiency experts. The approaches Koala provides not only help you reduce your energy bills and maintain a more comfortable living environment, but can also reduce airborne allergens, water condensation issues, wear and tear on your HVAC system, and even lengthen the life of your roof shingles. The Koala team provides existing homeowners with a doctor's diagnosis of your home's energy efficiency system. They can offer several strategies to help you stay more comfortable and save more money on energy bills all year long. Koala has the capacity to tackle large spray foam projects from new home construction while being available to help everyday homeowners get some relief from South Louisiana's extreme weather. As an added bonus, most of Koala's projects qualify for federal income tax credit. Give Koala a call today at 225-457-1001 to schedule your free energy efficiency home assessment. And tell them you heard it on TigerBait.com, and you're going to get 7% off your order. And last but not least, guys, we got to talk about Alumni Hall. Guys, Alumni Hall, this is where you show your Tiger pride. Okay, Alumni Hall is your ultimate shopping experience, the best and largest selection for the whole family. Nike, Nike Golf, Champion, Columbia, Peter Millar, Southern Tide, hats, Yetis, gifts, accessories, and more. LSU students, faculty, and military receive 10% off in-store every day, and you can earn cash back with their Hall Pass rewards. Alumni Hall, located in Perkins Road, or anytime at alumnihall.com. Alumni Hall, where Tiger fans shop. All righty, and let's get back into it here. See if we got any good comments before I dive down into my notes here. All right, got a question for Zack here. Zack, could we see any offensive linemen switch to the D line if LSU has limited success in getting any D line in the transfer portal? Well, he asked you, so take it and run, my guy.
It's a good question. I couldn't envision anybody, on this offensive line doing that. Obviously, you have your, I guess, four starters coming back from last year. Throw in DJ Chester, so you have your 5 guys that you want. And then after that, looking at the depth on this roster, I really can't see anybody doing that. So even though it's a pretty good question, I just can't see it. I have to believe that Bo Davis is going to crush the transfer portal during that second window and move on from there, even if it's a couple of JUCO guys here and there. So, I have to assume that Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples are going to, bolster up that defensive line and move from there. I can't see anybody switching from offense to defense, but that is a pretty good question. I can't lie.
What about anybody on the defensive line sliding inside? Do you see
that's something that's like a more realistic thing in my opinion. Somebody like an edge guy bulking up, putting on some more weight and sliding to the interior defensive line. And that's something that you and I have talked about the last 2-3 weeks because obviously defensive line depth has been a key concern, and we talked about it on several occasions. But yeah, I could certainly see somebody on an edge rusher, somebody of that nature, tacking on 10, 15, 20 more pounds, sliding on the interior and adding some depth there for sure.
I like a Dylan Carpenter. That's a guy I've always looked at.
That's the exact guy that I was thinking too.
I like his frame. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here.
I know I'm checking the comments too.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to go through. Look, I want this to be a comment-heavy show. I feel like a lot of our shows this year have been so news-heavy that there hasn't been as much fan engagement as I have done in years past. So I'm gonna actually go through the rundown here. Let's talk about this defensive coaching staff. So you got defensive line Bo Davis, defensive edge rusher Kevin Peoples, which is an interesting new position they added. Blake Baker as your DC. Corey Raymond comes back as your defensive backs coach, cornerback specifically, and Jake Olson is kind of your one unproven commodity, although he did do a good job as a position coach there at Missouri, and he's a guy who's considered a bright up-and-comer. He did good work helping with LSU's linebackers alongside Blake Baker at LSU, so clearly that's a good chemistry hire. They're clearly looking for Blake Baker to pull in people he likes. I put out a poll this week asking fans to grade the hires, the defensive staff hires as a whole, A, B, C, D. What do you think the breakdown of that is?
I think if you're following this new defensive staff, every single person would think that these are all home run hires.
Each one of them are home runs, or collectively a home run?
Collectively.
I would say so too. Yeah, I have mostly overwhelmingly positive things to say. I think he did a very good job hiring this defensive staff. And this defensive staff has that more wow factor that, quite frankly, the defensive staff factor he hired 2 years ago didn't. When he hired Matt House, it was like, okay, yeah, he coached linebackers. He, went to 3 straight AFC championships. He had a really good defense 1 year at Kentucky. And then it was a bunch of guys who's like, I'm putting my faith in Brian Kelly and that he sees what he's looking for and likes it. That's not really the case this year. Okay, so here's the breakdown. 3,300 people voted in this, by the way.
I was going to say I voted on that too, and there were a ton.
It's mind blowing to me how popular these polls get. Anyways, 86% said it was an A. Most people were yelling at me for not giving an A+ option, guys. I can only add 4 options here, and 12% gave it a B. So 98% of people are giving this either a B or an A. I kind of wrote down just relative guessing grades. I mean, of what I kind of thought. I think Bo Davis and Kevin Peoples are both just A+ Grand Slam hires. I think there's an argument that both of them were the best defensive line coaches in the country this last year, and you brought both of them in.
This is the only time that we're going to agree with Big Game Boomer.
Yeah, I know. Blake Baker. I would feel better about Blake Baker if he had like some top 5 defenses he's put together in his career. But what he's done at Missouri is impressive. I would also feel really good about him if he hadn't gotten fired from Miami as DC. I loved him when he got hired as linebackers coach. Loved that. The DC is just, it's a higher standard, higher threshold. They also paid a crap load for him, and they're going to be stuck to a huge buyout for him. I still don't see how you can. I mean, I can understand giving that like an A minus. It's still,
same page.
he has the same job in front of him that he had when he got the Missouri job. They offered him the Missouri job, and they had like the 130th ranked defense, and he turned that around to a top 25 defense at Missouri. So impressive job, especially doing it in the SEC. Let's put it like this. He had a top 25 defense this year, and he played Jaden Daniels in LSU.
Yep.
They hung 49 on him.
Mm-hmm.
So to turn around, I mean, but Jaden Daniels did that to everybody. And 7 of those were remarkably a pick 6, if you remember. Remember the Major Burns pick 6?
Mm-hmm.
It's like the only defensive play in clutch time all year long. Corey Raymond is one that gets interesting, man.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that.
No, you first, because I don't want to.
I've been asked so many.
I don't want you to copy my take and just say, "Yeah, man, me too." I want to hear your thoughts.
Here's my thing on Corey Raymond. It's because I've been asked on several occasions, and I kind of just give the same kind of cookie cutter answer. It's obviously his last couple of years as a defensive backs coach as a whole, whether you want to say cornerbacks, defensive backs, however you want to slice it. It's been a struggle. The production hasn't been there, and it's obviously something that's relatively worrisome. And then you kind of look at what he can do in the recruiting trail. And my thing with all of these coaches is the Louisiana ties that they have. I think that's significant. I think that's super important. And then you bring somebody like Corey Raymond back, who's like, an architect to the DBU, the DBU saying in Baton Rouge. So look, I know that there's some worries when it comes to the production, the player development, and obviously the numbers from the last 4 or 5 years that he's been a defensive backs coach. But at the end of the day, you bring him back on staff, and the guy that he's going to be leaning on is going to be Blake Baker, who's a significantly he's a talented coach when it comes to defensive backs. Obviously, linebacker is going to be his bread and butter, but he's super good with the safeties as well. So coming back to what the question is about Corey Raymond as a whole, I think he has a lot of resources that he can rely on. I think Jake Olson's an up-and-coming guy who's been described to me as a football genius. And then you have Blake Baker as well, right there with him. So I think Corey Raymond's going to have a lot of resources that can help him, hit that next level as a coach. And then obviously the recruiting game is his specialty, and you can't take that away from him at all. So there are some things that are obviously concerns and hurdles that he's gonna have to jump over. But at the end of the day, if I'm gonna put a grade on it, man, I think you got to sit there with a B plus type of thing, because the things that he provides are so significant that you don't get from other defensive backs coaches. So overall, I'm happy that he's back in Baton Rouge, and I know the players, signees, and targets are all happy too. I kind of did a recruits react type of thing on it. And they're really happy.
They're really excited about it.
Yeah.
And by the way, I talked to one of my former teammates who played at LSU. He was a walk-on, but he played for Corey Raymond, and he actually played a couple years under Ron Cooper as well. That's a throwback name for you, but Ron Cooper put together the best defensive backfields in the history of LSU. I'm convinced. 2010 and 2011. That 2010 defensive backfield is Tyrann Mathieu, Patrick Peterson, Mo Claiborne, Eric Reed. I mean, it's just unbelievable how much talent was back there. Craig Lawston was a guy in the mix there. Who's the number 18 guy? Brandon Taylor. Yeah, unbelievable. But he played for both, and he liked Corey Raymond better. Raved about Corey Raymond. Here's my take on Corey Raymond. He is a guy who has a resume, a body of work that's nearly unrivaled in college football. I mean, he's had Thorpe winners. He's had so many All-Americans, so many first-round draft picks that he recruited and developed. He was at LSU for 2012 till 2021, until 2022. So 9 years at LSU, and most of the defenses were pretty solid. Now, I think the defenses that he had that struggled so mightily, 2020, by the way, was the worst passing defense in the country that year, and he was the DB
that week one performance, man.
Oh, well, that one alone, man. And you look at that team, it had Derek Stingley Jr. and Elias Ricks on it, back-to-back number one corners in the country, although both were banged up a good bit that year. That defense ranked last in the country, but I think that had more to do with the Bo Pelini play calling and situational. The thing is about a DB coach, they don't call the plays. and you can't really just judge the whole passing. It definitely is an indicator, but you can't just judge him flatly on
That's
that.
well said, and that's completely why I kind of went in my direction with, a B plus instead of being a little bit, pessimistic or negative about it, because at the end of the day, he's not the one who's making the play calls. So I think that's a really, really good point.
And you gotta, I mean, in this year, you could tell the DBs clearly their technique was an issue. Unable to identify the ball in the air. I mean, guys just running wide open. I think it was both scheme and the coaching of technique and stuff that was a problem. We didn't really see too much of just like blatant bad technique, even when LSU was struggling under him. So I definitely think it's an improvement. I don't think there's any way to say it's not an improvement. But would I feel his last 4 defenses all were in the bottom half of the country in terms of passing defense, like 70th and below, including the one, it all started with the one that ranked dead last. Now, the year before that, they won the national championship in a defense that really just caught its, it really found its identity as the year went on. They held Georgia to 10 points. You saw what they did in the playoff. Really found itself. But ever since then, man, it's been some pretty bad defenses Corey Raymond's been a part of. And, there was a reason Brian Kelly didn't retain him when he got here. And there was a reason why Billy Napier, your boy, let him go. Now, I think that reason is that he was a scapegoat at Florida. Do you kind of agree with that? That they were just looking like some heads need to roll to save Napier's job at this point?
It's not a bad take. It's not a bad take. I won't disagree with that.
But anyways, would his grade be a lot higher in my book if he had top flight defenses for 4 straight years? Of course it would. Everybody, and there's not a person on planet Earth who would feel more confident about this hire if his defenses were, say, top 20 defenses each of the last 4 years. Not a person. So for that reason, I'm kind of at a B plus. I definitely could see things going in either direction with him. And then of course Jake Olson. I mean, just based bright up and comer. I mean, I think the lowest you could give that is a B minus, maybe a C plus, just based on lack of body of work. It's like opposites here. You got Corey Raymond with such a long proven track record and Jake Olson with a short one. But, I think there's something to be said about that bright up and comer coach. Did you know that 8 of the top 10 NFL offenses this year were all called by like young guys in their 30s who are one of their first gigs calling plays? It's like finding that bright young guy. It pays
dividends. It can pay dividends.
It's just a little bit of a riskier endeavor, so to speak. So anyways, I think that I would give the coaching staff as a whole either an A or A minus. And I don't think that it's too reasonable. I think if you're going below a B plus, it's a little unreasonable. Let's see here. Barry Barbier. Bama's having a fire sale. Boy. Were you shocked to find out? So Alabama's had 30 players hit the transfer portal.
It's remarkable, man. Like, obviously, you saw Jameer Grimsley leave too, and that's an early enrollee. And, we talked about this last week. A lot of people, I guess you commit to a coach, not a program anymore. And it's a unique situation for Alabama. But, I mean, look, we're LSU guys over here, and we witnessed kind of a mass exodus too when Brian Kelly took over the job.
Well, hold up. Let me ask you this real quick.
It wasn't 30 people, but,
how many would you guess entered the portal?
Wasn't it like 17 or 18?
17. It was 17.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and that was a mass exodus. So, whew, I tell you this: none of the early enrollees. Well, it's not a fair comparison because of when the timing happened, but none of the guys who were early enrollees like entered the portal for LSU. Like Julian Sayin, dude, that's such a.
I mean, obviously, that's
such a bad loss.
That's an early enrollee that hurts pretty bad. But I mean, to lose Caleb Downs too, the SEC Freshman of the Year. I mean.
Isaiah Bond.
So much production. It's ridiculous.
Caden Proctor.
And he improved so much over the year. Like, to start the year, he was, a true freshman in the SEC. You can't expect too much. But, he was significant improvement. But Yeah, man, the list goes on and on. It's pretty ridiculous how many players they lost. Obviously, you said 30, but the talent of it is what's so significant to me.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm gonna just tell you, I'm setting my bar for Alabama at a reasonable 8-4 next year. I
Wow.
think anything beyond that is, coach of the year type stuff. I honestly do. Let's see if this. Okay, good. Oh, didn't want that to go up yet. Forget y'all saw that. I just wanted to put that in the background. Anyways, here. Hiring guys with LSU and Louisiana ties helps recruiting go forward. Well, Brandon, I'm gonna tell you this. It's good timing. Remember when we were just talking about the 2026 class with 3 of the top 5 players in the country all in state? There's never been a better time to get you a guy in place, a bunch of guys in place with Louisiana ties. You got to keep those guys on board. 2025 is a stacked year as well. You got guys like James Simon still on the board. You got to lock him down out of Shreveport. Definitely a good time here. I'm going to go through more of the recruiting news updates in a bit. I got a list of just little bullet points updates. I've already touched on a bunch of them, but we'll talk about some interesting notes and nuggets as we go here. Like I said, tonight's cool because as we get to the comments, I'll organically get to a bunch of what we're seeing here. But anyways, let me talk first about our sponsors. I got to talk to y'all about Spectre Sports Art, who does have some awesome news for y'all. Guys, y'all see the Dylan Cruz piece behind me? Well, in addition to that, he's added a bunch of new pieces like this one. The Jaden Daniels Heisman Trophy portrait. It's called That Kid. It's on sale now. You go to SpectreSportsArt.com. You can see the link in our bio to check it out. The code TigerBait10 is good for 10% off your order. Guys, these start at a print at $50. So you can get this pretty affordably if you want to add it to your collection of LSU memorabilia. But the canvas piece behind me, that's actually only $150. So if you want to print, you can do it like that. You can do it unframed. You can do it framed. Guys, he's got it in all sorts of sizes, all framed canvas, ready to fit your budget and your room, whatever that may be. So very excited about that kid piece coming to work here. And guys, as you remember, this is art with energy. It's designed to catch the eye of any Tiger fan. The details are really what's going to hold your attention. If you look on his, you can see the exact writing on his wristband that he had on the field there. You could see that's from the game against Florida where he broke the NCAA record from, 350 yards passing and 250 yards rushing. First player ever to do that. That was really what kind of launched his Heisman campaign into the forefront. So make sure to go check it out. You can check out the entire collection at SpectreSportsArt.com/The Bayou, as you can see right behind my shoulder there. Guys, he has followed up his Joe Burrow, which was his first piece. He now has 6 more incredible Louisiana pieces, including a Drew Brees piece, a Dylan Cruz, a Tommy Tanks piece. He's got Coach Burrow and Coach O, Tiger Stadium. So just about anything you're looking for, Spectre Sports Art's got you covered. And bear in mind, this is good stuff. It's stuff that the athletes themselves are buying. Okay, Joe Burrow's parents have theirs in the living room. Dylan Cruz, his dad, bought the piece from him, and it's in his man cave. Jaden is talking about getting a copy here. So Jordan's working on getting that to him right now. So you really want to have the same work that the athletes themselves are buying. You don't want to buy the cheap ChatGPT stuff out there. So make sure to go check it out. Link in the description of the video. Use the promo code TigerBait10 to not only get 10% off your order, but to let them know that their advertising with TigerBait is working. We also got to talk real quick about our title sponsor tonight, Celebrity Theaters. Guys, remember, they got weekly specials going on every day of the week. Monday is Senior Savings Day, where you get $5 off all patrons over the age of 55 all day. Tuesday is Bargain Tuesday, where you get discounted movie tickets and concessions for all. Wednesday is College Night. Admission for college students after 5 p.m. is $5. Baton Rouge location has half off arcades all day long. And Thursday at the Baton Rouge location is Thirsty Thursday, where you get discounted bar items. Guys, all Celebrity theater locations house 8 to 10 auditoriums. So whether you're interested in hosting a birthday party, private movie screening, corporate meeting, arcade party, they've got the perfect facility to fit your needs. Celebrity Theaters is proud to offer birthday packages for children of all ages. Let them handle everything from movies to entertainment to setup to cleanup. For more information or to book your birthday party online, visit celebritytheaters.com/events. If you're looking for an exciting, affordable venue for your next school event or fundraising, you have come to the right place. Celebrity Theater is a crowd pleaser for all of the above. To schedule your birthday party, family gathering, holiday party, corporate event, or field trip, just give them a contact them at events@celebritytheaters.com or send them an email or visit online celebritytheaters.com/events. Okay. Recruiting rundown today. We already talked about Juju Lewis, who reclassified to 2025. That gives Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, 3 of the top 5 players in 2026. That's obviously big news. But they also updated the 2024 recruiting rankings today. 247 did, at least. And that, of course, impacts the composite rankings. That's the way it works. Dominic McKinley moved into 247. He's number 18 on their list now. And now he's firmly a 5-star. He's number 22 in the country. LSU added another 5-star player to the composite ratings today. Zack, tell them who it is.
Big Trey Green, man. We've been talking about this. We've been wanting this to happen for a while. Preston said it a bunch of times, and here we are. It finally happened. This is a guy that we've been waiting for a minute, and well-deserved. Just one of the most versatile weapons in America, and he got that 5th star in the composite, and it's something, like I said, for a third time I'll say it. Preston's been waiting for this for a while, as have I, and here we are.
I've been talking about it for a while. I mean, he's number 1 tight end in the country. He's an absolute freak. Love what they're bringing in with Trey Green. Now, he's actually not a 5-star on any of the individual sites. This is actually really funny the way it worked out. But because he's so highly rated, such a high 4-star on every single one of them, it made him the 32nd ranked prospect in the country, which the way the composite rankings work, because there's not a uniformal code of rating that officially they give the top 32 a 5-star rating to represent the 32 first-round draft picks. So of course he slotted into that 32 spot, gets the 5th star. We talked a lot about this recruiting class, how over time it had a great core of players. It filled a lot of needs and just very little holes left from this class. But you lacked star power. Well, then you brought in Weston Davis, who's a 5-star and on 3, and now you got 2 guys who are composite 5 stars. All of a sudden, this recruiting class that seemed a little lackluster, a little disappointed to some, now ranks 7th in the country. Which really, it should be ranked 6, because Alabama's recruiting class, like the guys who were enrolled and entered the portal, like a Julian Sayin, they still count. They still count. So Alabama's class really shouldn't be in the top 10 anymore, because they lost him and they lost Jameer Grimsley. Probably more. I just don't have them off the top of my head. The LSU should be higher. And then Terry Bussey is still in the mix. He's actually going to take a visit to LSU January 31st. He's also visiting Georgia that same week. So it's down to Georgia, Texas A&M, and LSU for Terry Bussey. And he's still committed to – I think it's funny. He never actually decommitted, even though he's still clearly very wide open. We'll see. And of course, Ryan Williams decommitted from Alabama. He's still in play. So if you add one or both of those guys and with the final rankings, all of a sudden this recruiting class that a lot of people were getting a little testy about, a little frustrated about, we're not used to seeing LSU not sign a 5-star guy. All of a sudden, 2024 is looking pretty good too. I do have some questions as to how hard they're going to push for Bussey and Williams, just because that they have 88 right now, and those would count against that. It's not like signing a 2025 guy where you figure it out next year. It's they're going to be playing on your team next year, but man, you got to think both those guys are like, if they want to come, you find a spot for both those guys, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would kind of For me, I would say the ship sailed for Ryan Williams. He was obviously supposed to visit last Wednesday.
Didn't come,
and then he canceled that visit and
went to Bama instead, actually.
He went to Bama on Monday, actually, for kind of like an unofficial ordeal. He was hanging out with one of his friends, and it was really icy, snowy, and so he ended up staying an extra day at Bama, and then he left on Tuesday, was supposed to come to LSU Wednesday, canceled that visit on Wednesday, and ultimately went over to Alabama that weekend. And this was all after he visited Texas A&M. So if it's my personal opinion, I think the ship's kind of sailed in the Ryan Williams sweepstakes. I think it's going to be the type of thing where it comes down to Texas A&M, Alabama, and Auburn. And I think it'll be pretty hard, not necessarily hard.
Auburn and Alabama have to be the front runners there, right?
It's the home state guys, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It would be kind of tough for me to see him leave his home state, but you never know what the Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian to do. But, I would say the ship probably sailed for Ryan Williams. And then for a guy like Terry Bussey, man, you put your foot on the gas for just a five-star athlete.
Well, you got to, like especially a guy who can play DB too.
Yeah, this isn't the type of thing where you're worrying about your scholarship count because you have until August to kind of get that down. But you go foot on the gas for Terry Bussey because this program values him as a Swiss Army knife. This is a guy who can play both sides of the ball, play special teams, and that's been LSU's pitch all along is that they feel like they can see him do just about everything on the football field.
Yeah.
You got your defensive backs coaches in play too, so you got Corey Raymond entering the mix as a recruiter too. So, look, I think that visit on January 31st is going to be the most important visit that they'll have for the foreseeable future. And your foot's on the gas for Terry Bussey, obviously still committed to Texas A&M, but look, you do all you can to get a player of that caliber because that's a superstar.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I think that it's a big time player that you gotta try your best to make a spot. You know what I mean? Kylan Billiot, he actually rose up to number 64 on the 247 charts. We're talking about the big receiver out of New Orleans. I'm sorry, Terrebonne. Same high school as who's the defensive tackle? Mason Smith.
Yep.
He was a guy who was like a fringe 4-star. And, he went to the All-American Combine and really, I was talking to someone at 247. He really turned some heads with their scouts. Very impressed with him. Now, he's only ranked 252 in the composite, so that shows you how much higher they had him. But a big riser there. So you love to see when your guys getting love down the stretch. We talk a lot of times about guys who lose stars and go down the ratings. I feel like we don't talk enough about the guys who work their way up.
Dude, Billiot is an absolute dog.
He's big.
This is a guy, he's got tremendous size, tremendous length. His hands are obviously outstanding.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of physical traits that you're looking for in a true wide receiver. And he has a Louisiana culture to him, too. He has that flair. And like you said, kind of piggybacking on what you said, he torched at the All-American.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a late invite, too. This wasn't a guy who had that invite for a while, like most of them. This was a late addition to the roster. Went out there, torched. And like you said, we've spoken to some people who saw him play, and it was absolutely phenomenal. So This is a guy who I think you put some more muscle, you put some more size on him, and you put him in that strength and conditioning program in Baton Rouge, and, man, the sky's the limit. I think this is a dude who can be somewhat of an immediate impact guy. Wherever you want to put him on the field, I think he can torch. So, I'm it's a well-deserved bump for him. That's
reminds me just he's kind of a smaller Brian Thomas is what I've seen.
That's a fair assessment. I mean, obviously, you know me, I'm a big Brian Thomas guy. So I think it's a fair assessment. I think it's the type of guy who can blossom down the stretch during his LSU career. But, man, I'd really like to see him make an immediate impact because I truly believe that he can do that.
Dude, I hope Brian Thomas gets drafted by the Chiefs, man. As much as their receivers have struggled, imagine him in a Mahomes offense.
I am all aboard the Brian Thomas train. Like, I've been saying this for a really long time. So I think he's a first-round talent, clearly. And if he went to Kansas City, oh, my goodness.
That would be nasty. That with that arm, dude. Oh, man. And then they don't have anything for receivers this year.
Yeah.
Talking about the offense, the offensive coordinator is still surprisingly vacated, especially when most consider the front runner for the position to be right there on staff, Joe Sloan. It seems like if that was the move you were going to make, you don't have to go far. Just say, hey, bump up in the office, man. Let's get to calling plays. You don't even have to tell him to change office. He already called the offense. So I don't know exactly what's going on with that. But I do know there is a guy in Alabama, Tommy Rees, who a lot of people were speculating. I'm not saying we were talking Brian Kelly. I don't have any sourcing on this. I'm just telling you, like, people in the media were saying, well, Brian Kelly hired him at Notre Dame. 2 years ago, Brian Kelly tried to bring him with him from Notre Dame to LSU, and now he's looking for a job, and LSU's looking to hire someone. Well, he took a job as the tight ends coach at the Browns. So you can officially pull his name out of the sweepstakes. I put that out there on Twitter today, and hilariously,
I bet people were chewing you out saying he wasn't even a candidate.
I got some people who were kind of questioning, where did you hear this buzz from? I mean, I'm just telling you, I got asked on multiple radio shows that I appeared on. I'm just telling you that all of that is there. I didn't like the hire. I never did. I was just telling you the facts of the situation. So I think I'm relieved. I think most LSU fans should be relieved. I was never a big fan of the offenses he was calling, particularly the one at Alabama he just called this year. Critter Getter says Joe Brady. Yeah, no chance they get Joe Brady. Joe Brady, number one, doesn't want to be in college, doesn't like recruiting. And number two, is getting looks not only at NFL offensive coordinator jobs, but he just interviewed to be the Falcons head coach. And obviously they want Belichick first, but I mean, if he gets offered an NFL head coach, there's zero chance. And I still think there's zero chance of the Bills will probably offer him the OC gig if he wants it. So, and then there's plenty of others who want, shoot, I'd wish the Saints would hire him. I think it's more realistic he goes back to the Saints.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad to see. Look, I appreciate what Pete Carmichael did over all those years. I do think he was more of a product of the Sean Payton system. And I think we saw what he was capable of once Sean Payton was gone. So I'm happy to see Pete Carmichael his time come to a peaceful end for the Saints. I'd love to see Joe Brady at the Saints personally. I think it's way more realistic than Joe Brady to LSU. Just my 2 cents there. I saw an interesting tweet from one of LSU staffers today, Sherman Wilson, which if y'all follow, anybody who knows Sherman Wilson knows he puts out some fire on Twitter. He was talking about people talking about the portal, and he says, guys, y'all talking about all these portal players like LSU didn't bring in the Gatorade Louisiana Player of the Year and the Max Preps Mississippi Player of the Year to play defensive back. He's, of course, talking about PJ Woodland and Jawan Johnson. You know what that tells me? It tells me this staff is happy with the class they just brought in at defensive back, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think when you look at somebody like PJ Woodland, I think he was underevaluated. This is a guy, like you said, Max Preps Player of the Year. I mean, this is a guy who played, 7A football in Mississippi, and I know you can, take it what it is at Mississippi football, but look, this is a guy who I think was under-recruited, and I think he can make an impact sooner rather than later. He has the intangibles. He has the physical traits. His tape's really, really good, and now he's going to be locking in specifically on defensive back because he was an athlete at high school. So, yeah, I think Sherman Wilson and this coaching staff in general with LSU believes in their recruiting process, and I think they're very high on what they've got. So, obviously, Sherman always puts some heat out on Twitter, like you were saying. And
so much Twitter.
I think Jawan Johnson and PJ Woodland can be guys that develop well and make an impact on this program at some point.
And that doesn't even include Deshaun McBride and Joel Rogers. I mean, they did recruit a good defensive back class. Mm-hmm. My one concern about PJ Woodland is he's a little thin. He's about 160 pounds right now.
Yeah.
And needs to pick up some muscle, especially if he's going to be tackling.
Reminds me a little bit of Ashton Stamps. Ashton Stamps was a guy who came to campus super, super thin, put on about 19 pounds, and had the chance to talk to him about that. And, it's kind of how he hurt his groin. He said that he was playing a little bit heavier than his playing weight should be, and so he had to drop a few pounds. But I think you could see the exact same thing happen with PJ Woodland, man. Get to campus and, bulk the hell up, because once he does that, I think he's going to be ready to go, just like you were saying.
Yeah, I mean, really. By the way, another Gatorade Player of the Year is committed to LSU. Bryce Underwood was Michigan's Gatorade Player of the Year. Of course, the National Player of the Year was DJ Lagway, committed to Florida. Very good player. No hate on that. I suspect Bryce Underwood will be the heads-on favorite to win the National Gatorade Player of the Year next year, especially if he continues to perform anything like he's performed the last 3 years. So anyways, good show tonight, guys. Appreciate all y'all for watching. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed the show. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter. I'm at PGuy77. He's at Zack Nagy, at ZNaggy20. Make sure to like the show. Leave a comment if you enjoyed it tonight. Share it to your social medias to help with our algorithms and things of that whatnot. But we're going to be live next Monday. Probably will be our final Monday show of the year. Of course, guys, this is a football show and we go on a hiatus from February to August because there's, quite frankly, not enough football news to sit here and talk for a week and all that good stuff. I need some more time with my family at that point. So we got 2 more shows after this. So make sure to tune in. We'll be live next Monday and then we'll be live next Thursday after signing day. Hopefully we can talk to y'all about maybe Terry Bussey signing. That'd be pretty cool to talk about. But anyways, y'all make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. I appreciate y'all for watching. Y'all have an excellent evening.